Mesías lo ha profetizado, todos nuestros días lo hemos alcanzado. A Dios humanado vemos en el suelo y al hombre del cielo porque le quisiera. Muchas profecías lo han profetizado, ya no en nuestros días lo hemos alcanzado. A Dios humanado vemos en él y al hombre del cielo porque le quisiera. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me say a pleasant good evening to everyone. I'm Gordon Jones, the senior pastor here at the Fondren SDA Adventist Church. On behalf of the pastoral staff and administrative staff, elders board or church board, we are honored to be the host of this event this evening. We believe that we have a civic responsibility, and community trusteeship is highly valued here at our church. It could be no better place to have to host this occasion because the Bible is clear about what Christian stewardship is all about. Truth be told, the Bible in Malachi chapter 6 and verse 8 tells us that as Christians we should love justice, we should love mercy, and we should walk humbly with our God. And for those who like the New Testament, James also talks about it. He says justice means looking out for those who are on the margins of society. And so we do pray that this evening, that as we come together as a community to listen to those who have decided that they feel a call to public office, that those things will be on our mind. Justice, mercy, and those who are on the margins of society. This evening, I'm proud to introduce the president of our association, the Fourth Bend Pastors Association, Pastor Rudy White, and he'll do for us the invocation. I invite you, would you assume a posture of worship, prayer, maybe standing or kneeling. It's however comfortable you are at Fondren, just assume a position of reverence before our Lord. Pastor White.
Thank you. As we gather, we stand as the light of the world, as believers, and we're about to transfer God's authority from one person to another. And we pray as we gather that we are not focused on parties, but on the principles of God. We sing, God bless America. He will not bless us if we go against his word. And so we pray that God will guide us, open our ears, that we could hear his voice as we listen to the voice of these who shall come. Let's pray. Our Father, we've come again in Jesus' name. And as we have come, we recognize that you're sovereign. We thank you for your goodness toward us. Thank you for America and all that we have experienced under your hand. And we desire you to keep blessing us. And so, Father, we submit our minds to you now. And we ask that you'd guide us as we listen to these minister candidates who will come. We pray that we could see what we've not seen, hear what we have not heard. But most of all, may we hear your voice. We pray for each candidate. We pray, Father, for this city, for this nation, those who will reign. You said when the righteous reign, the people will rejoice. But when the wicked reign, there is groaning. And there's groaning in our city and in our nation. And we've come tonight that you'd guide us instinctively, oh God, inspirationally and instructionally, that we would select those who would reign with your honor and glory in mind. We ask now, in Jesus' name we pray, for your glory. Amen.
Good evening. My name is Carl David Evans. Come on in, everybody. Come on in, come on in. We just want to, first of all, just thank you for the privilege of your time. We have worked very, very hard to put on a first-class forum for Fort Bend, Houston. I have the privilege of being the president of the Fort Bend, Houston Super Neighborhood Council. I'm a servant of the people, but we have community partners who are working with us. And I'm going to introduce them shortly, but I must say this first. The pastor of this church, hold on. The pastor of this church has done an outstanding job of hosting all of us together. Pastor Gordon S. Jones. Let's give him a hand. In addition to that, we have many people, a number of individuals who have given their time to assist us. And I want to say thank you because I'm from the country, y'all know. I'm from Pine Bluff, Arkansas, from the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, formerly Arkansas A&M College. So I want to give some special shout outs and thanks. Let's congratulate the young people from Willow Ridge High School Choir. Let us also give a round of applause to the Marine ROTC from Willow Ridge. We'd like to also recognize those individuals who were so bold to be a sponsor. If you look on the back of your program, we would see that our state representative, Ron Reynolds, was a sponsor. Nina Sang is a sponsor. Wells Funeral Service, Mark Gibson. Sonia Rash, a sponsor. Also, we want to recognize Verstine Trailer, and also Cheryl Sterling. All of those individuals are sponsors. In addition, there are some individuals I called at the very last minute. Fred Taylor, he gave an in-kind contribution of the science and the medium and things. So we want to thank Fred Taylor. Also, we want to thank our good friend who is a member of the Quail Run Homeowners Association, Mr. Willie Rainwater. He volunteered his time. I want to thank you, Mr. Rainwater, publicly for the time that you have volunteered to make this Mayoral Forum a success. The first individual that I would like to introduce is Miss Verstine Trailer. Verstine, like Ernestine, she's Verstine Trailer. Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. In addition, I would like to introduce our vice president who is representing the Fort Bend Houston Super Neighborhood Council, Ms. Donna Thomas. We also like to recognize the president of Alpha Kappa Alpha chapter. We're so happy to have a representative for the NAACP, Missouri City chapter of the NAACP, and presented Ms. Coleman, Linda Coleman. For A Phi A fraternity, James Davis. Thank you. For the Fort Bend Pastors Association, we'd like to recognize Pastor Rudy White. For Sigma Gamma Rho, we like to recognize Sean Clemens, Sigma Gamma Rho. And last but not least, we're going to let our trustee, National Congress of Black Women, Southwest Houston, National Congress of Black Women, Addie Halliger. We want to say thank you very much, and you all can exit to my left. Thank you. At this time, we will introduce our consultant, Mr. Claude Foster.
Good afternoon, everyone. Since we're in the phase of introductions, why don't you give yourselves a round of applause for being here, because you're who this candidate forum is all about. We're about educating the community. It's my honor to introduce our two moderators for this evening. You know, when we was planning this event, you know, the conventional wisdom is to go get a newscaster or some other person that's got name recognition in the community, but we also wanted somebody competent and somebody that knew this community. And we think that we got two competent, knowledgeable people to ask questions for you tonight on your behalf. And that's Steve Brown and Carla Brown. So let's give them a round of applause. I am also proud of them, you know, consenting to be the moderators, because they represent two of the service organizations that have really made a difference in this country, locally, nationally, and internationally. That is Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated and Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity, of which I'm a lifelong member. So thank you.
At Fort Bend, Houston, and our community partners, we have tried very, very hard to have a forum where we did not want to be impartial. We wanted to make certain that we invited everybody. We did not want any form of favoritism for anyone. So we wanted to be very, very impartial. So when the candidates, they took a number, we did not decide on what order that they would speak or what order that they would seat, but they chose a number. And whatever number that they chose, that is the seat that they would be sitting in. So we invited all candidates because we think that everybody, if they pay their money to file, we should get a chance to hear from them. So we're going to bring the candidates in. I think it's 7:02. That's what time it is. And so we're right on schedule. So let's see who's coming in first. Tell them to give us their number. Okay, hold on a second. This is candidate who he pulled number 1. Please give your name.
نوفل هجامي. نوفل هجامي.
This is candidate number 2. Give us your name.
Pastor Kendall Baker.
Candidate number 3. Give us your name.
Bill King.
This is candidate number 4. Give us your name.
Tony Busby.
This is candidate number 5. Give us your name.
Carl David Evans.
Give us your name.
Dwight Boy.
This is candidate number 7. Give us your name.
Derek Brose.
Candidate number 9. Give us your name.
Johnny Taylor.
Okay. We did receive word from our mayor, Sylvester Turner, that he would be attending this debate. So if he come in late, I don't know what number that he chose, but whatever spot is left, he can take that. Thank you.
Good evening. All right, and happy Indigenous People Day, as it were. My name is Steve Brown, and this is
Carla Brown.
no relation.
No relation.
At least as far as we know so far. We are excited to be the moderators today for this event, and we're excited to hear from the candidates who are running for the highest office in our city, in the city of Houston. But before we get started, there are a couple of ground rules that we wanted to run through real quickly. The first being that we have received 3 pages, single space, of questions that have been vetted by the committee and by the community that cover a wide variety of topics and issues that we'll be going from, and hopefully we can get through as many as possible today. But those questions are in our possession, and we'll be reading through those questions throughout the night.
And we hope to get through all 20 of them. With that said, each candidate will be given 90 seconds to present his or her views on the questions asked. If a candidate is asked to respond to a question by the moderator or at the request of another candidate, that candidate will be given 30 seconds to respond. Also, you are only allowed 2 opportunities to respond. And those will take 30 seconds. We will give you 30 seconds to do those responses.
Okay. With no further ado, let's get started. Are you guys ready to get started?
Yes.
All right,
Hello.
let's do it.
Let's go.
Candidate number 1, if you could please state your name and your 2-minute opening statement.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I want to first thank the organizer for inviting us today, and then I want to thank all the people who they are with us today. Houstonians are tired of the political division, of polarizing issues, of the corruption and the abuse of the power at the City Hall. Houstonians are tired of the flooding problems, of the crisis of the affordable housing, and all the major problems that we all know about it. My name is Naufal Houjami. I am running as a family because I want to run the city of Houston as a big Houstonian family. The most important, I am a husband, a father of 4 kids who were born and raised in Houston, Texas. I am an entrepreneur, author, politician. I have been involved with both sides, Republican and Democrat, as advisor to many elected officials. I am also a U.S. national security strategist. I'm a member of the Center of Strategy and International Studies in Washington, D.C., inventor, composer, and many other stuff. But the most important is I want to run the city of Houston as a big Houstonian family. Doesn't matter which color, which religion, which political affiliation, which economic status, just one big Houstonian family. Because I believe building strong families, lead to strong communities, lead to strong city, lead to strong state, and that will lead to strong nation. It all starts with the families. And if I'm elected the mayor and I'm number 2 in the ballot, no one will be left behind. Thank you.
Mr. Baker.
Good evening. First, I want to thank God for being here today, and thank you for the Fort Bend Houston Coalition of Community Partners and all of you for this invite. My name is Pastor Kendall Baker, Houston native, the first candidate to throw his name in the hat for mayor last summer. Why? Because I heard the cries of the people. Many of you know me, but don't know you know me. When you hear my voice, you know this. Thank you for calling the 311 Houston Service Helpline. For 29 years, I worked for the city, and for part of those years, I answered tens of thousands of calls a day, listening to citizens call in, flooding, pothole, trash, issues of all types to the city of Houston. And now, the last 4 years, I've seen services decline. I've seen leadership decline. I've seen things just go aloof. And so the Lord called me to run for the position because I know I can do a better job than the current leadership. With your vote this November, again, no child will be left behind. No senior will be left behind. No one will be left behind. And let me tell you something. Experience counts. Experience matters. I was born for this hour. I was raised at the city, having been there since high school. I was born to be a leader and a public servant. And so I would appreciate your help getting some good experience that can work, a workhorse from day one. And it is a God-given assignment, and I plan to do it and do it well. Once again, thank you for this invite, and I look forward to the dialogue tonight.
And before we go to the next speaker, I want to make sure that the candidates understand why this lovely young lady is sitting right next to us. She is the timekeeper. And so at the 2-minute mark, she'll raise up the stop sign, and we'll have one on both sides throughout the evening. So look for the stop sign. And if you don't need to use all 2 minutes, feel free to yield whatever you have left to the next speaker so we can get more questions in. Okay? Dolores Felix is going to be the timekeeper over here.
Thank you.
And Cassie Johnson will be the other timekeeper.
Thank you.
All right, Bill King.
Good evening. My name is Bill King. You may recall that I ran in 2015. And I would like y'all to reflect back on election night in December of 2015. The results in Harris County, Sylvester and I were almost a dead tie. And when some boxes came in from Fort Bend County, I dropped about 3,800 votes behind and was the margin of difference. First of all, I promise you, if y'all had been voting for me, I would have showed up tonight on time, number one. And number two, do you remember what Sylvester said that night? I'm loving me some Fort Bend. How much loving have you felt in the last 4 years out here in Fort Bend? How much loving will you feel when his political cronies tried to cram 7 low-income housing projects down your throat out here? No other super neighborhood in the city got that many. How much support has he shown for your super neighborhood plan? I've read the whole thing. I'm completely in agreement with it. Let me tell you what. If he was this bad to this neighborhood, when he knew he was going to have to come out here and face you for re-election, can you imagine how bad he's going to be for your neighborhood the next 4 years? Let me tell you one thing. I'm going to remember who elects me this time, and I promise you I'll be out here the next 4 years addressing your problems and helping you implement your super neighborhood plan.
Mr. Busby.
Thank you. We've been to more than 40 of these forums. And remember, we're not being paid by the city. The mayor is. We've been to more than 40 of these forums. He's shown up to 5. If he had done such a great job, if he really felt he had done such a great job, he'd be beating that door down right now to get in here and prove his case. This election is a referendum on the last 4 years. And you have to choose. Are you happy with the way things have gone? Or do you think there should be a new direction? Now look, despite what the mayor says about me on TV, he spent $1 million attacking me on TV so far. And you wonder why I'm attacking back? Because when a Marine gets punched in the face, a Marine punches right on back. And I'm going to continue to punch back. He wants to portray me as some rich guy. A lot of people are born with a silver spoon in their mouths. Guess what? I was born with a plastic fork. My dad was a union meat cutter. He drove an hour to work. He worked 9 hours. He drove an hour home. I had to take care of the garden, and I had to feed 100 hogs. My mother drove my school bus. She worked in my high school cafeteria. I busted my hump. I am tired of career politicians that go into politics and they come out 30 years later on the other side wealthy. And then they criticize people like me who worked 90 hours a week to the exclusion and detriment of my 4 children and my wife, trying to earn a living and build a business. I will not be criticized for trying to do what's right. I will not be criticized for trying to help people that have been hurt, injured, discriminated against, burned, maimed, which is what I've done for the past 25 years. When I'm your mayor, and by all indications I believe I will be your mayor, I am absolutely going to work for you every single day, and I will not leave anybody out, and I won't make a promise I can't keep. And every single forum, I will show up and defend what I've done or talk to you so I can learn more. Thank you. I'm Tony Busby. I'd appreciate your vote.
Mr. Boykins?
Oh, I thought.
Where y'all see?
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. First of all, let me thank Pastor Gordon, if I'm not mistaken, Gordon, for opening up his church. Thank the ladies of Alpha Kappa Omega from your fraternity, brother. Mute. Yeah, I know, but I have a few seconds here. I want to thank Dr. Brown and Stephen for moderating. Let me just be real clear about this. Fort Bend is very important. These boxes, this community is very important to the city of Houston. I've had an opportunity to serve on city council for 6 years. I think I have the most experience to know exactly how the city operates than anybody on this council. But let me be clear about this on this table. But let me be clear about this. Every mayor from Bill White, Lee Brown, Anise Parker clearly understand the importance of this area. And there's no reason that you should be in a position where you are continue to ask for services when you carry the load of the electric in terms of the mayor's office down to City Hall every 4 years. But we spend a lot of time and effort making certain West Gray is taken care of, Richmond is taken care of. But when you look in your neighborhood, it's disappointing at this point, and the mayor talks about the 4-4. Go look at the 4-4. Then go look at my district. Let me tell you what I've done as a district council member. For the past 6 years, I asked my residents to give me an opportunity that I'll bring grocery stores, quality grocery stores to our area. Done that, not 1, not 2, but 3, using private-public partnership. I created a TERS in the Sunnyside area, which is now at an $800,000 increment to bring infrastructure to the neighborhood. I created a program to help senior citizens with minor home repairs at no cost, 607 houses, no tax money, and most importantly, a second chance jobs program to help those who made mistakes in the past, including nonviolent ex-felons. So you ask yourself the question, when you get elected, what do you want to do? I didn't go down to City Hall to make no money. I went to help people. Mayor Lee Brown is supporting this campaign because he knows I'm for the community and I'm going to be the mayor to represent the community. And I hope I can count on your vote. Thank you so much.
Right on time, Mr. Mayor. Your turn to please introduce yourself. 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Thank you. Let me say good evening to everyone. It certainly is an honor to be back out in the Fort Bend area. Let me just say to you that there are a number of things that we faced 4 years ago in coming in. As you know, 4 months in, it was the tax day flood. A year later was Harvey. And then just a month ago, we faced Tropical Storm Imelda. And Houston is still standing. 4 years ago when I came in, we faced the largest budget deficit in the city's history, $160 million. 5 months later, we balanced the budget, unanimously approved. And since then, there have been 4 balanced budgets. 4 years ago when I came in, we faced an unfunded pension debt of $8.2 billion, costing the city $1 million a day. 4 years later, it's now $4.03, no $1 billion a day. And all 3 credit rating agencies have given us a thumbs up. Those are things that we faced when I came in, and we have been addressing those issues. This area of West Fuquay, been in bad shape for a long time. Work has already commenced on that particular project. I've named Fort Bend as one of our complete community initiatives, along with 9 others, concentrating resources specifically in this area when we're dealing with mixed income housing, quality schools, parks and green space, sidewalks, addressing illegal dumping, and the list goes on and on. I want to thank you for allowing me to be your mayor, and I'm asking you for your support to allow me to be your mayor for another 4 years.
Mr. Bros?
Thank everyone for putting this together. I appreciate your time and appreciate you coming here to be actively engaged. So my name is Derek Bros. I'm 34 years old. I'm a lifelong Houstonian. For the last 10 years, I've spent my time in Houston as an activist, as a journalist, and as an advocate. I've focused my work locally, but I've also been everywhere from Standing Rock to Ferguson, using my camera, using my pen to shine a light on injustice. And I've had the pleasure of having the gentleman to my left run away from me and my camera a few times when I ask difficult questions, as well as the previous mayor, the previous police chief, the current police chief, and pretty much anybody else who puts themselves in a position of power will likely find themselves confronted by my camera and the questions. And I'm bringing that to this race now because I think it's going to take somebody who's an advocate and not a politician. And while there are other people in this race claiming not to be politicians, they're still equally connected to, I think a world that's not accessible to the average person. I think we need somebody who actually comes from the communities of Houston, who's born and raised here, and who understands the struggle. And to that point, I'm, I think, the only one in this race who has experience in the criminal justice system. 15 years ago, when I was 20 years old, I had some time behind bars because of a drug addiction I had, and I had to work myself through that. When I got myself locked up, I decided to turn my life around, and I've dedicated my time since then to empowering myself, getting involved actively in my community, and now, as a mayoral candidate, I'm talking about putting an end to the war on drugs in Houston, starting by decriminalizing cannabis and welcoming hemp, which hemp is now legal, industrial hemp, growing hemp along the bayous, the waterways, to help with water flooding and erosion, and generally addressing mass incarceration and criminal justice in a way that has never happened before on the city level. And it's because I know what it's like to get out as somebody who has a felony, somebody who 15 years later still has to deal with that fact. I understand what that's like, and I think it's going to take somebody who really has that experience to come forward and seek to actually create change in this position. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Johnny Taylor, and I first of all want to say thank you to the Seventh-day Adventist Church and Pastor Gordon Jones and the other affiliates who have come together to put forth this forum. So on behalf of all of us, we want to say thank you for that vision and that mission. You've heard from all of the candidates here, and there's an old adage that says they save the best for last. So as you look at all of these other candidates, what I want to tell you, you're looking at the past, okay? When you look at me, you're looking at the future. And why am I saying that? I am saying that principally because I am a native Houstonian. I grew up in South Park, Houston, Texas, with a single mom, 2 older sisters. Went to Fondren Elementary, or Fondren Middle School, Lamar High School, Texas Southern University. Then I went to the United States Navy. And in the Navy, I was an operations specialist with a secret clearance. After that, I came back and completed my undergraduate in computer science and mathematics. And then I completed my master's in information technology. And I did an MBA in international business. And during this time, I was in Atlanta, and I had an opportunity to meet my wife, where I am married. I have 1 daughter and 5 sons. And today, I head up a company that's called Mobile Encryption Technologies, LLC. And it is a cybersecurity and IT, IoT infrastructure, encryption, and mobile solution provider company. I had no intention of coming back to Houston and living in Atlanta, but in 2014, our company won 2 contracts with the city of Houston. One was the mobile device management contract, in which we completed in May of 2014. And the second contract was a cybersecurity contract that was a 5-year contract. And we completed that contract in December of 2018. And I am here now running as the mayor because we have lost our way in terms of leadership. We have lost our way because 50 years ago, We created the innovation to go to the moon.
Mr. Taylor, thank you so much. Your 2 minutes has expired, but
Yes,
hopefully
sir.
you can cover the rest of that stuff in some
Yes,
of the
sir.
questions
Thank
that
you.
we. Thank you so much for being here. Okay. Once again, for the sake of making sure that everyone knows what the rules are, each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond to each question. You will be able to respond to an answer if you feel the need to, but you only can do that twice. You have 30 seconds to respond to someone else's answer, okay? So use those wisely. I figured let's get started with the softball. The flooding issue here in Houston. The city of Houston has faced 500-year floods in practically every other year or every year. There has been flooding in this part of the city, out in Fort Bend, Houston. And we know in recent days the state government has decided to take federal money that the city needs to do some flood mitigation projects. The question is, what is your plan for flood mitigation? What's your plan for drainage? What's your plan for climate action if you do become mayor? Starting with Mr. Boykins.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. And that's a great question. Let's be clear. We're going to continue to have flooding in the city, but as the mayor of the city, it's our role to make certain that we have working relationships with the county, Harris County Flood Control and the Corps of Engineers. But my plan as mayor is just very simple. What we will do is come into, again, my entire administration is about neighborhoods. So we will go into the communities and tap into every neighborhood park, create what we call a multi-purpose park, dig it up, use it as a detention for your neighborhood when it rains, and when it's dry, you can use it as a park. Also, every street that have curb and gutters, we will place additional inlets on the back, in the middle of each street. You have inlets on each end, but we will place 2 additional inlets. So when the water hits, it drains immediately into your storm sewer. So that would have an immediate impact to your neighborhood. I think it's important that we start thinking about how we as a city. Now, people tell you all these grand ideas that sounds good. You have the Corps of Engineers, you have Harris County Flood Control, and you have the city. You need to know what your role is. And I'm not going to take credit for something that's not part of the city. Let's be real clear about that. And I think it's important that you know what your role is. What I do, I have 16,000 District D residents in my robocall list. Every time we talk to anyone dealing with tipping us on a storm coming in, I call my senior citizens and give them a heads up on cleaning the inlets. And if you cannot get your inlets clean, call Public Works and we can make it happen for you. So we will continue to do that as well. Thank you.
I think the first thing we have to do is be honest with ourselves. We're not honest. We have not spent the drainage fee on drainage projects only. We're raising about $110 million a year on a drainage fee that we're all paying. It's not being used on drainage. If you go to TonyBusbyForMayor.com, you'll see I have a very detailed plan, which is much too much to talk about in 1 minute. It's not something you solve in 1 minute, but what I can do in 1 minute. When we were at a debate the other night, the mayor said, we did exceptional when Harvey hit. We did exceptional. And the question was, what could you have done better? And I got calls and emails and letters from people that were so offended. And let me tell you why. Alexander Sung, Bital Kasim, Travis Callahan, Agnes Stanley, Sergeant Steve Perez, Benito Ware, Calvin Montalbano, Andre Pelsac, Jorge Perez, Yahir Viswet, Colby Arsenal, Victor Acevedo, Ruben Jordan, Belia Salvador, Manuel Salvador, Xavier Salvador, Daisy Salvador, Dominic Salvador, Devora Salvador, Wilma Ellis, Ruben Jordan, Martin Salazar, Michael Tucker, Keisha Williams, Gustavo Rodriguez, Efren Angel, and Thomas Escovy all died in Hurricane Harvey. So do not tell me that we could not have done better. We could have done a lot better. Do not tell a group of people that we did exceptional in our Hurricane Harvey efforts when that many people died. We will do better when I'm your mayor.
I'm going to take some moderator privilege. The question is specifically what your plan would be for flooding, for drainage, for climate action.
Use the drainage fee. You're going to give me another minute? Because it'll take 5. Use the drainage fee only for drainage. Clean out the open ditches, which makes up 1/3.
Well, I'm going to call out some names. Michael Johnson, Debbie Thompson, so I can get another minute. Can we do that?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Clean up and clear out the open ditches that make up 1/3 of the drainage. I'm happy to give Dwight more time. I mean, I'd like to hear Dwight. He's got some
We're
great
gonna
ideas.
ask the audience if you would refrain from your comments, please, so that we can hear the candidates.
So, and Dwight made it clear, we're talking about sheet flow right here because that's what the city's responsible for. That is the flooding that occurs before it gets to the rivers. That is the bayous. The bayous, the responsibility is the county. Obviously, the reservoirs, the responsibility is the Corps of Engineers. All these grand and projects that we hear people taking credit for are actually Corps of Engineers and Harris County projects. What we need to be doing is spending that drainage fee on cleaning out the storm drains and the open ditches, because that's what floods people's homes long before we ever get to the bayous. And that's what's at TonyBusbyForMayor.com, which I referenced.
Thank you, Mr. Busby.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Will we all be allotted an extra answer?
If you refuse to answer the question that was asked, then I'm going to press you to actually answer the question that was asked.
Okay, just want to make sure we're all getting fair
And then
time.
that will count against your 30 seconds to respond. But go ahead. Next, Mr. Baker.
Thank you very much. Well, under my administration, we will make sure that we send city crews out to do routine maintenance of the storm drains and make sure that we keep our ditches graded and regraded like we do, like we used to do. It seems that process has slowed up quite a bit. I have friends and family out here in Fort Bend, and all I'm hearing is, Kendall, we're the forgotten area. Don't forget us when you become elected. I said, I won't. And then, like others are saying, true, we need to see how the drainage fee is being spent and spend it correctly. So I'm going to make sure that that money is spent on drainage projects and drainage projects only. We know it's going to flood, and so we're going to have to put every resource, every dime, every penny we can into the drainage. We are 20 feet below sea level, if not more. And so under my leadership, we are also going to pay those employees because their morale is at an all-time low. Those guys who are regrading the ditches and cleaning out the storm sewers, they're telling me they're not getting paid right. They're telling me they got contractors that are making double the money that they're making. And so they're doing very little just to get by as well.
Mr. John.
Okay, thank you. First of all, my family and I, we got hit by Harvey. We lost 7 days, the power, a lot of damage. I have to use my own money. The family of my wife on Highway 6, they lost over $65,000. They get no help. Just want to make sure that we're on the same page. I did my own audit to the city of Houston. It is not the problem how the drainage or how all these problems. The problem is the way we are giving the contract to the wrong contractor. The current mayor has been blocking the public information about who are the contractor, how much they are getting paid to fix our street. My family, they are all civil engineer. I went to I-10 East, the same place. I have in Skype one of the best engineer in the world in my family. He was looking at. He told me this place, they never fix it. And they keep sending the invoices. Those are facts. That's why I'm running today. As U.S. national security strategist, Houston is like this for me to advise the solution. I am running because I got hit very badly. And the mayor, he's not giving the information. Who is getting the contract? That's the problem, please. Don't get distracted. How are we going to clean the drainage? I can clean the drainage by myself. The problem is who is giving the contract. And he's not giving the information who is giving the contract. That even his secretary, ex-secretary, former secretary of press, Darian Ward, he was indicted to not giving the public information of, getting an obstruction of the information. We all know the problem. We need to stop the double standards. I'm going to clean the thing. I'm going to build this. No. The problem is the contractor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thought I was going to have to duck and weave there a little bit for a minute.
I had that problem previously.
So I've been flooded 3 times in my life. The first time when I was 10 years old, my family was evacuated from Kemah ahead of Hurricane Carla. Before a lot of y'all's time in here. So this is a very personal issue to me that I've been worried about for a long time. Look, we live on a big flat coastal plain. It rains a lot here. It's probably going to be raining more in the future. We built all the infrastructure on the cheap for decades. We haven't maintained the infrastructure that we have, and we haven't built enough detention for the amount of concrete that we've poured. That's why we're flooding so bad. We all recognized this problem back in 2011, and we agreed to a new tax on ourselves called the drainage fee that brings in about $110 million a year. Houstonians have paid in almost $1 billion in drainage fees, and about half of that money has been spent on drainage, and half of it has been spent on other things. Now, I can't tell you exactly what it's been spent on because it's all put into one pot and commingled with other funds. All I can tell you is about $110 million a year goes into that fund, and on the CIP, the Capital Improvement Project, it shows that we're spending about $50 to $60 million a year on drainage. So half of that money is being spent on something else, which is all the things that are included in the Rebuild Houston Fund, which include things like streets, but also traffic signalization, 500 employees, pension bond payments, 380 agreements, if you're familiar with those. Spend 100%, every single penny of the drainage fee on drainage until we get ahead of this issue.
Thank you. With regards to a plan, the storms are coming with greater frequency and intensity. For the first time in the history of this city, we are putting forth a climate action plan to address that. That will be finalized before the end of the year. We have doubled the number of stormwater projects in every city council district, and Councilmember Martha Castek-Tatum can attest to that. We're expanding the bayous. The only bayou that the water stayed within its banks was Sim Bayou, and that's during Harvey. That's because we have expanded it. We need to do the same for the other bayous as well. We need greater detention in the city of Houston and holding developers to make sure that they put in the requisite detention, and we've started on doing that. There were 4 projects that we have put forth to FEMA, the federal government, for hazard mitigation grant funding. I'm pleased to announce that of those 4, 3 of the 4 major detention projects have been approved by FEMA, fully funded, and we are moving forward on that. We have put in place the Green Infrastructure Initiative, which means that a part of our drainage system utilizing parks and green space, and we're moving forward. On the drainage fee, every single dime is being spent on drainage and streets because streets are a part of our drainage system. The city is responsible for the streets. We will prefer the water to go into the streets rather than to your homes. It then goes into the bayous and from the bayous to the Gulf. All of these initiatives are taking place as we speak right now.
Thank you. Mr. Rose?
Thank you. So, yes, I think we do need to acknowledge that we live in a city that is unsustainable. For generations, it's been built unsustainably. We're living at or below sea level, depending on where you're at, and we can expect storms to continue. So these are certain things, certain realizations that we have to have and recognize that unless we start building different and generally start re-greening Houston, we're going to continue to deal with this one way or the other. Now, my plan is what I call Hemp Houston. If you go to derekbros.com/Hemp Houston, you'll find out more about it. Now, first off, of course, the money should be going to where you expect it to go. If there's taxes or fees, whatever you want to call it, that's coming out of your pocket and it's supposed to go to drainage or flooding, let's hope and actually try to keep the folks accountable so that that money goes where it's supposed to. But additionally, we need better communication between the county, the Army Corps of Engineers, also private groups like the Buffalo Bayou Partnership and others that I've been out there working with on the bayou. Part of this plan involves re-greening Houston, bringing more urban farms, community gardens, green spaces, food forests to help absorb some of that flood water, that sheet flow, but also, again, planting hemp along the various bayous and waterways as well as widening them. And this is a part of a bigger initiative, as I said, to decriminalize cannabis, end the drug war in Houston, address crime, address flooding, and it's a big picture. It's taking innovation, but I think now that Texas has legalized the use of industrial hemp for farming, Houston has a chance to be the next hub for that, and we can create a whole new industry around that can also incentivize the oil and gas companies to invest in hemp for fuel research. Thank you.
All right. Good evening again. Just want to finish off where I was before my time ran out. The point I was trying to make before that ending was the company Mobile Encryption Technology was named to the Houston Business Journal fastest growing 100 companies in 2018, where we were number 3. This year, on September the 26th, we were named the number 1 company, private company here in Houston, Texas. So what I am trying to do by running for the mayor of Houston through the All Campaign Stronger Together is to bring innovation beyond our company into the communities, into the city, and to bring all of us forward. Now, to the question of flooding, what we would do is some common sense things. First and foremost, we would implement zoning here in Houston. That is the central issue. There is no zoning in Houston. The second thing we would do is simply stop doing the same thing. Ignorance is when you keep doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome. So what we need to do is stop rebuilding in high zone and high flood areas and zone those off as such. And then beyond that, we need to 2X all of the drainage and all of the pipes across the city. That is what the city of Atlanta did 10 years ago, and they solved their problem. And then finally, we need to have transparency and accountability. If you simply put $1 in, then make for sure that the dollar of work is being done. That is the central issue here in Houston. And let me bring it home to you. All right, time out. I'll talk to you in a minute.
Excuse me, I'd like you, Steve, I'd like to use one of my 30-second rebuttals here. So it is absolutely not true that all the drainage fee goes to street drainage, and I'll be happy to demonstrate that for you on my website tomorrow. Every penny of that goes into the Rebuild Houston Fund. Only half of it is spent for drainage. There's another $50 million that comes from Metro, another $50 million that comes to the general fund. That's all supposed to be spent on street and drainage. Last year, the city transferred $120 million of that $200 million into the CIP. And we're working on streets. Most of that street money is going to asphalt overlays, which makes drainage worse, not better.
Stephen, can I rebuttal on that?
Yeah, and just to be clear, I don't know if the mayor heard the rules before, but each candidate can get a 30-second rebuttal, and you can use that twice during the course of the evening.
Thanks. Okay, thank you, Stephen. First of all, I've served on the creation of the Rebuild Houston Oversight Committee, and we have 4 funding sources, and one was the Rebuild Houston fee. And the estimate dollar amount at that point was $125 million. And I think what Bill is referring to, and he's absolutely correct, because I had no idea creating this fund that the 125 will be funding the people who were doing actual work for the project. Prior to it passing, they were getting paid out to general fund. As your mayor, we're going to change that. You need those projects, that money, to take care of the neighborhood drainage, not salaries.
Thank you.
And that wasn't under Mayor Turner, that was under Mayor Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Barkins. At this time, we'll go to the second question. Fort Bend Houston schools are underperforming. The latest TEA report card indicated that the majority of Fort Bend ISD schools in the Fort Bend Houston received some of the lowest grades in the district. All of the schools are the Title I schools with majority Black and brown student populations. The question to you, how would you proactively support Fort Bend ISD and the public schools in Fort Bend, Houston? We'll be starting with Mr. Taylor.
Okay, sure. A part of our campaign, the All Campaign Stronger Together, where you can meet us at Taylor and the number 4 Houston.com, we're going to do a couple of things. We're very big on women in leadership. So we're going to make for sure that we get the young girls, the young ladies, and get them trained and equipped in technology. Because every industry leads and is being transformed by technology. That's number 1. Number 2, we're going to create smart youth development and smart labs around the city. And in these smart labs and in these smart development centers, we're going to help the next generation get equipped so that they can learn how to do simple things, such as how to repair a mobile phone screen. And that will enable them to make anywhere from $75 to $100 per phone. And then beyond that, we're going to teach them the skill sets that they need in terms of coding, in terms of EF&I for engineering, furnace, and installation to help install and bring the life into 5G. So my vision is very simple. Everyone needs to be connected to technology And more importantly, we have an initiative which is called Mars Shot 2025. So I invite each of you to catch the light and catch the wave of Mars Shot 2025. And you can learn more and find out more at taylorforhouston.com. Thank you.
So I think generally when we're talking about education, obviously the city has certain limitations on what we can do, whether we're talking to HISD or Fort Bend ISD. But what you can do as a mayor is, I think, advocate for those kids who are struggling, right? And I was one of those kids who was struggling, dropping out of school, and if it wasn't for a couple of teachers who actually cared about me, I wouldn't have graduated high school. So I definitely understand, the struggle of just trying to make it through that. I think what we need to do is, as Mr. Taylor was talking about, bring some more innovation, and also perhaps start thinking in terms that maybe going into college and even sometimes graduating from high school isn't the only way that a child can get educated and can have skills and can develop. That's not necessarily the path for everybody. Some of us are more interested in trades, and in the world we live in today, we have more decentralized opportunities for children to be educated via online programs, as well as, I guarantee you, there are definitely nonprofits, and especially in the tech sector, organizations that would be more than happy to and willing to come work with students who have an interest in various trades, and getting to them as young as possible to get these ideas in the head, help them understand that they can have a bright future, whether or not that lies in a college degree or not. Thank you.
I named Fort Bend as one of our complete community initiatives. A part of that is also working to enhance quality education in our schools, especially our local neighborhood schools. Now, that doesn't mean that as the mayor of the city of Houston, you're going to be the superintendent of anybody's school district, but it's the recognition that you can't have a successful city without having good schools and providing our kids with the opportunities that they rightfully deserve. And that's why when I came into office, I started the Director of Education department at the City of Houston, the first time, and named Juliet Stepatch to be that director. And what we do is that we work directly with the school systems. And what we say to them, we want to partner with you. We're not trying to take you over, but we want to partner with you. And we are bringing all of the resources that we have to bear, our influence in working with other nonprofit organizations to assist you, working with parents, working with the students, having community engagement. All of those things are critically important. You don't have to be the superintendent to recognize that we can be their partner, and the City of Houston is their partner. The other thing that is helpful is to make sure that we tell our own story to our kids. For example, I am in schools all the time, and I let them know I come out of a household where neither one of my parents graduated from high school. My mom was the maid at Rice Hotel downtown, but she reared 9 kids, and you can still grow up and be the mayor of the 4th largest city in the United States.
So I'm a longtime advocate and supporter of public education. I've been on the HISD Foundation Board for over 20 years. I co-chaired the bond election in 2012 where we rebuilt all of the HISD high schools, or almost all the HISD high schools, including the Energy High School that was recently finished. I believe that the proper role for the city is to be supportive of the school districts and not try to run them. For example, I would not be trying to organize charter schools in the mayor's office to take over HISD schools or Fort Bend ISD schools, as was attempted under this administration. I do think that it's important for the city to make sure you've got good sidewalks, you've got good lighting, that the police are protecting. I was talking to some folks out in the Alief School District, and they've got a elementary school that they're worried about having to close because the crime in the area is so bad and they can't get the police protection that they need. The city needs to make sure those core services are provided around those schools so the school districts can do their job of making sure we have a quality education.
My wife was a former teacher. My mother, God bless her soul, was a teacher, assistant principal. My grandmother was also a teacher and principal. So I'm coming from the teaching and the education system. But the most important, as I have been all over the world, I analyze, I see why this country is successful, what they did. Because at the city hall, they are closed. They are not opening to work out with the HISD on charters and all that. There are four segments that any program can be worked at HISD. The first, we need a financial institution to get involved. We need the businesses to get involved to tell us what kind of program they want so they can hire the kids when they grow up. We need the community, churches. You have to be more involved with the HISD. They need to give you a seat to sit there. That's what's happening outside here in Europe. That's how they do it. And the most important, the last part is the government. The government, they're not going to fix the HISD. If this 4 segment, and I'm not bringing this from my mind, no. There are many successful examples in France, in Europe, in Australia, and they are doing it. And you as a church, you as an organization, you must be engaged with the HISD. The HISD must have a seat with you. The mayor is not involved for political reason. He's not involved with the HISD. Whatever he creates, that's the truth. So as a mayor, if you vote for me, as I'm coming from a family of teachers and principals, I will open the door for the community, for the financial institution, for the businesses, and for the city to sit at one table to find the good program. Thank you.
It does take a village to raise a child. And again, I'm hearing from this community. I have family members out here that this community has been forgotten. As your next mayor, I'll be sure to be an advocate for the school district. No, not take over, but be an advocate. No, not say, I have no comments on who the leader is or how it's being run. Listen, I came from North Forest Independent School District, which failed because of poor leadership. And I hope and I wished that the mayor at that time would have been more involved. Perhaps that district could have been saved. Forest Brook High School is a memory now because it's no longer there. As your next mayor, I plan to be hands-on and getting the community involved and the churches, like my friend here said, being involved. I was involved back in the days with the south end of the HISD school district in my spare time, just to make sure that it was up and it was rolling. We cannot forget about our children. They're going to replace us when we leave this place. They are the future. And as I tell the millenniums, you are in my heart because when I leave the mayor's office, I want to train you all to take over from there because they're coming. They're coming. And they're voting more now than ever. And so, hey, education, number one.
I think that Fort Bend ISD, HISD are joined at the hip with the city of Houston. If these school systems or any schools within them fail, the city of Houston fails. As a person who had 4 young children, when I was deciding where to live in the city of Houston or where to move away from in the city of Houston, my number one consideration is where could I put my children in school? We all know that's the case. And sometimes people can't move. Not everybody can afford a private school, and not everybody can afford to move. We have to make sure that every school works. We have to assist and partner. None of this cheerleading baloney. We got enough cheerleaders. We need people to assist and partner. Let's remember the situation. If a child cannot read by the time that child is 3, think about it. Our universal pre-K right now is 4 and 5 years old, right? Should be 3, right? If a child goes into school and cannot read, by the time that child gets into kindergarten at age 5, the child's chances of success are slim. If that same child cannot read by the time that child is in 3rd grade, the chances of that child's success are 0. That's the crux of the problem. We know the problem. We know what the stats say. We have to, as a city, if we want to save these schools in Fort Bend County, if we want to save these schools and HISD, we have to focus on that. Yes, I would love to do financial literacy classes after school because that's important. Yes, I know that not every kid goes to college and we want to train kids for trade. But the biggest issue is training children to read before they get to kindergarten.
Speaking of cheerleading.
Thank you. I've been at City Hall for 6 years, and to this day, I have not seen personally the impact of having an education person taking a budget item out of the city's general fund. I would use that department and create what I call a second chance program and have a direct and deputy director to deal with the issues that city deals with. And that's changing lives, reducing crime, picking up your trash, working recyclable, making certain that program is working, making certain you have community parks. And that money I think could be allocated for something else that can have a more impact on city services. With regards to public education, Dr. Brown, I need you to commit to me that you're going to run for education board again because you're qualified. And I say that to say we need to get away from electing people because they have a name. You have to something that important, educate people like Dr. Carla Brown, who has a PhD in education, who understands the impact of a board decision in order to make schools work. So as your mayor, I can promise you, I will not get behind anyone who just want to be elected and doesn't have the credentials. That's where it impacts the city of Houston. From a crime perspective, after school. Now, let me say this real quick. I offered in this past budget cycle with the mayor $1 million budget amendment to the PAL program, which is where police officers will work with the kids between hours of 2 and 10. And the mayor found a way to put it in file draw 13 in the committee, and it didn't come out. The point I'm making is, if we want to seriously address these kids after school, we got to put money into it on this end and not when they're incarcerated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any rebuttals anyone, on that question? Okay, we'll move on.
Well, I'll take one.
Okay,
I'll take it.
right.
I created the Department of Education. Let me tell you one good example. It's important to provide our kids with opportunities for summer job programs from 16 to 24. When I came in, the city was offering 450 summer jobs. In the first summer, we increased that number to 1,100. In the second summer, 5,000. In the third summer, 7,500. This summer, our kids, 16 to 24, 11,400 paid summer jobs. That's what's important. Giving our kids opportunity. Next year, the goal is 15,000.
I need to respond to Mr.
No.
Mayor.
It was my comment. I get a rebuttal. This is the last one, my last one.
I put my hand first, sir.
But I thought it was to the rebuttal of my rebuttal.
Oh, gosh. I was going with my family and 4 children, you can check that in the Facebook back, to the public pools. And I have good relation with all people working in the public pools. Yeah, Mr. Mayor, you said, yeah, you create jobs. But did you ask them what they're going to do after the summer finish? I don't think so, sir. They have problems. They have bills to pay. They were crying. They said, well, this is just temporary. I want to create a program that stays for long for our youth people, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. And you know, truth be told, Stephen, I'm not going to, I clapped and I commended the mayor for what he was saying. The only rebuttal I want to add to it is that it wasn't just him. It was the mayor and 16 council members. And I want him to throw that in there too. It's not the mayor doing all these great things by himself. I just want it to be clear.
Okay, the next question. Economic development. Chapter 380 of the Local Government Code authorizes municipalities to offer incentives designed to promote economic development, such as commercial and retail projects. Currently, Fort Bend, Houston does not have a first-class grocery store. Please explain how your administration will use 380 agreements and other Texas economic incentive programs like TERS's to encourage high-quality businesses such as quality restaurants and first-class grocery stores to locate in Fort Bend, Houston. We'll start with Mr. Busby.
Yeah, of course, I've built restaurants and hotels and shopping centers, and I can tell you that the city, for me, the cities that I was operating in were the main impediments of building. They made it so difficult on me many times. There's a lot of moving parts here, but let me directly answer your question. A lot of times the city, with the development requirements and the code requirements, make it very difficult. And so to suggest we're going to offer you incentives, but there's not the market there to support it, that's always has been the problem. Even when, and I'm not criticizing anybody, there have been areas across this city where there were food deserts, where there were not, grocery stores, just so people could go to the grocery store, for goodness sake. A lot of times a grocery store would be put into those areas, but another one would be closed somewhere nearby, because we have to remember in the market, somebody like H-E-B, somebody like these large retailers, these large restaurants. I tried for years and years, as an example, to get Tillman Fertitta to put a restaurant in Friendswood. You would think with all those, wealthy folks down there in that bedroom community that would support a high-end restaurant. He would never do it. You know what he said? He said it wasn't because there weren't any incentives, because the city offered him a lot of incentives. It was because the market didn't support it. And so I would love to say that, okay, the city of Houston is going to make sure that we build HEBs and grocery stores everywhere that they're needed and restaurants. But at some point, I got to be honest and say the market drives a lot of that despite the incentives that you provide.
Yes, I'm hearing that this area is known for having low-tier businesses like boarding homes and halfway houses in some parts. As mayor, I would make sure that we take a look at how the tiers money is being used out here and expand it out here. Again, I keep hearing this is a forgotten area. I would make sure that I make it a priority. And I know you hear politicians and people that's running for office say this all the time, but I have family that's been living here for over 2 decades. And I would make sure my family and your family and everyone that's out in Fort Bend will not be forgotten about. Whatever it takes to increase businesses, whatever it takes to increase the tours, if it fits, we'll make it happen out here. Because when we used to hear of Mo City back in my days, it was the place to be, the place to go. And there's no reason why it shouldn't be a first-class area, just like River Oaks and just like other areas like First Colony and things like that. So I'll make it a priority. Thank you.
Well, thank you for this question. Yes, we are all focused on the big businesses. Well, I am from the entrepreneurship. I like create small business here. I like the city of Houston give you incentive like a third world countries, they are doing it. You cannot pay taxes for 10 years. They can give you a location that you can invest your shopping, small strip shopping centers. And if you are hiring locally from here, they give you incentive. We're all focusing on big businesses, and they're coming to tell us what to do. I'm against that kind of things. They want to come in our terms, they are welcome to come on our terms. Otherwise, I am bringing more programs to the neighborhood that they want to create their own entrepreneurship. We are in capitalism business system. We are not on social system. Capitalist business is the bank, they are not doing their part. And I say it again, as I did my personal audit. The financial institution is a big problem we're having at the city of Houston. I know you're blaming the mayor, you're blaming the government, but the government only cannot do everything by itself to bring the businesses or the investment. We need the financial institution, we need to remind them that this is a capitalism system. When you push everything on the government, you are pushing it to be a social system. I want to be the capitalism business, and I want the financial institution. When the last time the Small Business Administration did their job? When the last time they gave a loan to small businesses, micro small businesses? 10 years, I did my own research. The Small Business Administration must do their job, plus the government. Thank you.
So there's a lot to answer to that question. I want to concentrate on the TERS for a second. TERS were formed by the state to help blighted areas, to redevelop blighted areas. We have about 30 TERS in the city right now, but 65% of the revenue goes to 3 TERS: the Uptown, Memorial City, and Upper Kirby. Any of those sound like they're blighted areas to you? And the most egregious example is this completely idiotic $200 million bus lane project that was just done on Post Oak Boulevard. Absolutely will not work. Ridiculous waste of money. You think about what you could do in Super Neighborhood 41 with $200 million. These TERS have been corrupted by campaign contributions, by wealthy people, by developers, and we absolutely have got to reform that system and get the money out to where it's supposed to be, the areas that need the help.
And the question is, what can we do to drive economic development in the Fort Bend area and in District K? And let me tell you, you have to be very intentional, because there are many communities throughout our city that have been underserved and under-resourced, and areas that have not been invested in for decades. And so you have to be very intentional. That's one of the reasons why we have come up with the Complete Community Initiative. And what that does is that it says we want to focus on these specific areas like Fort Bend to drive resources and investments into the area.
And so it's not where you're coming in and saying, this is what's best for you, but it's engaging the community to find out, number one, what are the type of businesses you want in the area? Because there are some you may not want in the area. And then it's leveraging resources, saying to businesses and companies, you're not coming in by yourself. Financial institutions, banks. And I've said to banks, where are you in some of these neighborhoods? You have left. And when the banks leave, so do the other businesses. So you want the financial institutions back. You want nonprofit organizations, faith-based organizations coming in. The government has just come up with these opportunity zones. I am holding an all-day conference on Monday on opportunity zones that helps to drive investments into areas that have been under-resourced, like Fort Bend. That's why I named it as a part of our complete community initiatives, so we can be intentional in turning the community around for the better.
So the idea of the complete communities, if actually functioning the way that the mayor claims it's going to, I think it could be a structure that is beneficial to neighborhoods like Fort Bend in this area if we actually have community involvement. The problem that I think we've seen, and some of the previous speakers have mentioned some of these problems, is that politicians are good at talking about programs, creating new departments, new bureaucracies, new initiatives, and but we have to follow through, right? There's a little bit more than just creating something. We have to keep up with them. We as individuals, when it comes down to it, just because I'm up here with these guys, I'm really one of you. And I'm doing this because we're being ignored. And so at the end of the day, if somebody says they're coming into their community to bring economic incentives, bring more businesses, which is a good thing, we have to make sure there's follow through. Yes, number one, what do you want in your community? What do you want your neighborhood to look like? Because every neighborhood of Houston, every community of Houston should look different based on the needs of that specific community, their specific resources, their specific needs. Key part of this problem in areas that are underserved is helping provide economic incentives in the form of small business entrepreneurships, helping people understand how they can get themselves up on their own feet and take care of themselves and then teach other people. Where we have a program where we can have entrepreneurs working with the youth and working with others who desire to have businesses. And again, asking the community, what do you want your community to look like? And then listen. Thank you.
So the question is, how would we use 380 agreements, and how would we help achieve a new store, grocery tier 1 store here in Fort Bend County? There are a couple of things that I will do as your 63rd mayor of Houston. First and foremost, we're going to create smart opportunity zones. And these smart opportunity zones are going to create inducements to bring developers into these communities, where we will bring back to them anywhere from 35 to 39 cents on each dollar that they invest. That's number one. Number two, as it relates to the TERS was a money grab. Okay, and it was a money grab because when you look at the city of Houston, it is the most diverse city in the country with 145 different languages, where New York has 143. So the 145 different language of people and minorities, they are the investors into this city, into this county, into this state. But yet, they are not being addressed properly. So what I want you to know, as your 63rd mayor, I am going to change the game. I am going to make the disadvantaged neighborhoods the top priority. All subsequent neighborhoods will take a second and a third seat, specifically Memorial, Upper Kirby, and River Oaks. And that's as clear as I can say it. And then third, we're going to make for sure that we work with you to hear your needs. So, and then finally, we're going to take the city-owned real estate and we're going to monetize that real estate and develop it. And we're going to create new revenue from that so that we can create our future together. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not going to tell you what I want to do. I'm going to tell you what I've done in my district. We came into the area and it was identified as a food desert. And HEB and Kroger chose not to come into the area at that point. And I lobbied them, I worked hard, and talked to both of them and convinced HEB to fly in from San Antonio. Rolled with me, long story short, drive down 288 in North McGregor, brand new HEB coming in. The late Larry Green was talking to me about the discrimination in this area with regards to grocery stores. But let me tell you something. Facts matters. Let me be clear about something. One of the reasons I'm running for mayor is that the mayor is not being honest with you. He can sell you facts that are not true. He talked about this complete community concept. Let me tell you what that is. The complete community concept is hidden behind this federal lawsuit. where HUD has told Mayor Turner that you choose not to build projects in the white neighborhoods, that's spelled out here, but want to bring them to the minority communities, and that's unacceptable. That's here. Here's the document. And so let me finish. So the mayor comes with this concept of complete communities. Now, let me tell you, in District D, we have banks. We have grocery stores, not one, not two, but three. We have infrastructure. This ain't me talking. You can look at it. And what I'm saying to you is, let's talk about how we empower our communities with the 380s and different economic opportunities we have at the city of Houston. Not hide behind not letting people of color live in white neighborhoods. That's what this document said, not me. So this complete community concept, don't get excited because it's giving points to have more projects to come into your neighborhood.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
And that's not right to sell your community on this, man.
Any rebuttals?
Yes.
I'm not going to even address that.
It's factual, Mayor.
Gentlemen, please.
That is so far on the moon, I'm not going to even address that. Let me just say this.
Who want to read it? No, we can't lie to our community. We ask these people to vote for us.
But we can only allow for one person to speak at a time. I've recognized Mayor Turner.
With respect to the economic development in that area, you have to have equity. And just like on grocery stores, you have stores in some communities that are top of the line. And then you have other stores in certain communities that are second line. And so what I am saying to all businesses across the board, treat every community the same. There needs to be equity. Don't treat certain communities where you give them one thing and you don't provide them the same quality across the board.
Thank you.
That's complete community.
Thank you.
I want to use 30
I would like
seconds.
to also make a rebuttal.
Yeah, look, I hear a lot of talk. I hear about programs being announced. What's actually been done, what we're going to do. I'm going to talk to businesses. What's actually been done in any of the complete communities. Tell me a specific project. I know what happened in the last 4 years in my community. We built a $200 million worthless bus lane that could have been spent someplace else. Look, we got a 4-year term now for mayor. Don't tell me what you're going to do in the next 4 years. Tell me what you did in the last 4 years, and then we can make some prediction about what you'll do in the next 4 years.
I just want to make one other key point. In terms of us making this a fruition and bringing it to fruition for Fort Bend and bringing the store here, in terms of the deal structure, we would use a public-private structure where the city of Houston could induce the equity by land that they own within Fort Bend, and that could be the seed to bring the store or any other development here. And that's the type of creative deal structure that I will bring to the city as the mayor, as well as technology and innovation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Okay, before Dr. Brown asks her next question, Ms. Lovell is not going to be here. So if you want to spread out a little bit more, and I know some of us use our arms more than others, I'm not saying anybody in particular. But if you want to spread out a little bit, you have the freedom to do that, okay?
Steve, thank you so much.
we don't want any lawsuits.
I'm not trying to get close to you, but that's okay.
Oh, you want us to? Oh.
Not an option. Not an option.
All right, let's get back to work on my next question for you. This question relates to a controversy surrounding the Houston Public Library Story Hour, which features city-sponsored drag queen Story Hour, which began in Montrose, Houston's historic gay enclave. The question: what would you advocate? Would you advocate or support an ordinance or charter amendment prohibiting adult sexual content and performers, such as a drag queen, in the Houston Public Library system programs and materials accessible to children? We'll start with Mr. Rose on this question.
Well, thank you for the easy one. So as a journalist, I actually went to the drag queen story time that took place in the Montrose Library. I interviewed the folks who were outside protesting, got to hear why that was important to them, and I interviewed some of the folks who were, felt like they were protecting the drag queens, the readers, from the protesters, and got to ask both of them, why is this important to you? Why do you feel like this is necessary? And I got to ask the folks who were protesting, what's your main issue? From what I gathered from talking to those who were, actively engaged, is they're concerned about tax dollars going to programs like this. So, for example, the library being funded by taxpayers, it rubbed these folks the wrong way to have something like that happen. Now, I also think it's important to communicate with the drag queen, the drag queen storytime community and the drag community of Houston in general as well, and to have that conversation. I think too often we have this talking past each other, and of course we see it all the time on these stages and in politics in general. We need more community dialogue. We can all agree, and disagree on different lifestyles, but I do think there are some core issues that it does bother people. People feel uncomfortable when drag queens, which whether intending to be sexual or not, somebody dressing up in this way, speaking to children, I think it does offend people. So at the end of the day, I would fight for preventing tax dollars to going towards supporting or funding any kind of event like that. And that's nothing against that community at all. I think it's just, if we're going to be fair to all taxpayers, we shouldn't use taxpayer dollars to fund programs that are going to be controversial like that. Thank you.
And the facts are, with the exception of them utilizing the space, there are no tax dollars in this program. None.
And there were two predators among them. Sorry, I just wanted to add that. Sorry.
With respect to this particular item, other than utilizing the space, there are no tax dollars involved in this program, okay? And there were only 2 libraries involved, in the Heights and in the Montrose area. And this was an initiative that was asked for by the parents themselves, okay? The parents asked for this program. It is a national sort of program that exists throughout the country. And now it's not in existence at all at the city of Houston. They moved it from the Montrose Library, and they were going to move it to another location. And so it does not exist. And they decided not to continue it because people were getting death threats. And the parents decided no. But let me say to you, as mayor of the city of Houston, I have the privilege of representing the most diverse city in the United States. People don't have to agree with everything people do. And if you don't want to take your children to it, and the children were escorted by their parents. So if you don't want to take your child, you don't have to. But this is the most diverse city in the United States. And when parents and patrons ask for certain programs that exist within our city, those programs are made available.
First of all, it's more than just the space. You've got the staff. This was all arranged by the library staff, and also it's still on the city's website right now for the Houston Public Library. This program has been suspended for the purposes of this election, and that's it. This is age inappropriate. We should not be doing this in the public libraries. If people want to do this in the privacy of their own house, that's up to them. But this is absolutely inappropriate for a public space. And by the way, after we were absolutely assured by the mayor at public session that all these people had gone through extensive background checks, we found 2 were felony child molesters.
This is a big question as a father of 4 kids. But when you are in public office, you have to take some consideration. As I said, I want to run the city of Houston. Doesn't matter which religion, political affiliation, sexual orientation, because we are living in Houston and they are parts of our city. Now, the program, we cannot just come and say we're going to put this program. You have to engage the community. You have to engage the churches. You have to engage the parents. You have to engage the one that don't want you to be there. And then you go to the vote. And then if the majority vote against it, we don't do it. That's my philosophy, because I know I respect everybody as a human being, but when I heard that they were predators, I was not happy with it. I have to be honest with you. When they were predators, child molester in the program, I kind of turned my head a little bit and I say, no, I don't want this kind. But I still opening the door that we need to engage with the people we don't want them or with the people we disagree with them. As a public servant, as a mayor, as I'm running my family, you know, I have twins. You know how much conflict I have every day? You won't believe it. Twins, who has twins here? It's crazy. But my wife told me you're the best politician for many years because I handled my twins. And trust me, like I said, don't never come and tell people what to do. Engage the community, please, and vote for it. Thank you.
And his twins are really cute, I can attest to that.
And I'm a twin.
Could you repeat your question, please?
Absolutely. The background as well.
No, just a question.
Would you advocate and support an ordinance or charter amendment prohibiting adult sexual content and performance such as drag queens in Houston Public Library System programs and materials accessible to children?
Yes. Simply, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting. The argument in favor of this program was the parents asked for it. Can you imagine if you just had a group of parents and whatever they asked for, we're going to let them do it in our public libraries? What a terrible argument that is. We were promised that the individuals that were reading those stories to those children had been properly screened. We were promised that in a public session. Many people showed up and argued about that, and we were told, no, they're properly screened. Well, we should have known. We can't pick up the trash on time. We certainly didn't screen these people because one of these individuals that was a pedophile had attacked an 8-year-old, was a convicted sexual offender that was in there with children reading to children. Listen, can we go just read the Bible in the library now? Can we have a Bible study in the library? Then by golly, we're not going to have drag queen story hour in our library. Period. Look, the parents asked for it. Go do it at Barnes & Noble. Go do it there's a ton of great bookstores in the Montrose area. Go do it there. I have nothing against drag queens. Go live your life. God bless you. I have nothing against you, but you're not going to do it in the public library. And it's more than just the staff. It's more than just the library. We had to provide police protection there. We had multiple police officers there that we could have had on the street protecting our families and our communities that we had there because of this controversial program that never should have been in our libraries in the first place. And I'm not going to allow people to say that we're being hateful because of that. I'm being commonsensical. This is a practical issue. We're not going to allow it.
You know, serving on city council, you get to see things from a different perspective. We have a $5.2 billion budget. 2.5 of that comes into our general fund. We have a lot of major issues to deal with. No one wants to deal with predators. But let me be clear about this. You have a different view when you're sitting there than sitting at the table. We need a non-discrimination ordinance passed by the city of Houston. Now, we're not talking about putting people's life in jeopardy or children, but you look at I can't recall the state offhand right now, a transgender person was killed just because he or she chose to live that life. We're not that hateful. Regardless of who you love, it's not my business. My job as your mayor is to make certain your trash is picked up, you're protected, that solid waste is doing what they need to do, your drainage is working, fire is equipped, your police is equipped, fire is paid according to what you passed on November 6th with pay parity between police and fire. That's my job. You know, I'm not trying to, if the parents want to take their kids to a park, they got the right to do that. My job is to make certain they're protected in that park. So we have bigger fish. We're talking about bringing conventions to this city. We're talking about recruiting companies with a reduction in our tax rate to make certain that they look at Houston as a competitive city. So my focus will be on, which will bring jobs here, will be able to make certain that we have a city that's attractive, competitive for people and companies to want to come to Houston. The drag queen story, I haven't heard anything since whatever happened down there, but I'm going to spend my time talking about how I can help your neighborhoods and help this city.
Well, I have two views on this particular question. Personally, I think it's not proper, it's not right. However, I'm running as your 63rd mayor of Houston, and in that vein, I look at this in the veins of, or the lenses of, sources and uses. So if you have a citizen and that citizen pays tax dollars into the tax system, then they are an investor and they have access to any city-owned real estate or city-owned properties. So in that regard, I would say everyone should have access equally because right is right and wrong is wrong. So that would be my position as it relates to this question. Thank you.
All right, thank you all.
Steve, I just want to make one rebuttal, please. A lot of people take this issue and try to make it into an issue of hate, which I completely reject. This is not an issue of hate, guys. Listen, I've done 25 years of cases in court fighting for discrimination. People have been cheated, wronged, hurt, or discriminated against. It's not that. That's not the issue. The issue is use of our public resources and something that's incredibly inappropriate for children with police officers. I mean, like the mayor said, death threats and so forth. If the parents want to do that, hey, that's their prerogative. I don't have anything against drag queens or anybody's lifestyle. God bless them. I have no problem with it. But you're not going to do it in our public libraries. That's the point I'm trying to make.
And I have one more rebuttal. I just want to...
Hold on, Mr. Taylor. I think you've done 2 already.
No, I have not.
We have you marked down for 2.
You have.
Okay,
That's
quick,
inaccurate. Then that's what you have. Sir.
Steve, do I have a second one?
No, get your facts straight. Get your record straight.
I think we rebutted everything that's been asked so far. So.
All right. I just want to, just in the veins of accountability, Mayor Turner, you sat here tonight and you said that there was no cost. And I think everyone has heard that there was cost. And as the mayor, I just want to make for sure that you know that your words have power and that you have to talk straight and you have to be honest in all times, irregardless of the truth. So that's just my rebuttal to that position. Thank you.
I missed that last part.
Okay, we're going to move on to an issue that is very specific to Fort Bend, Houston. On December 15th, 2017, a gas well blew out near Texas Parkway and the Fort Bend County Toll Road, spewing a strong odorous gas, hydrogen sulfide, into the air, endangering students in nearby schools and residents in nearby neighborhoods. 2 questions. First, specifically, when incidents like this happen, what will your administration do to ensure residents are properly notified and kept up to date by TCEQ? And then second, more in general, what are your plans to ensure and protect the quality of the air and the water out here in Fort Bend, Houston, and in Houston? This one's Kendall.
Sure. To your first question, I will make sure that residents or a part of the city's emergency alerting system, like we have within Houston area. And number 2, I'm hearing even now today from relatives that the water still smells like there's chemicals in it and so forth. So I would double down on making sure that testing is done, make sure that the water quality is good, make sure there's no cancer-causing agents in the water, making sure people are safe. And so we would have to beef up what the health department is doing in terms of testing and making sure we're sending all the resources that we have to send out here to make sure that the water quality and the air quality is safe after these things happen.
Let's stop the double standards and turning around. And let's go straightforward to the problem, and it's called zoning. And I think it's time that Houston bring this zoning. We need to have some zoning. You see, as I was advisor to many elected officials, I can write you books about sweet talk and sweet, but I am not today here to give you sweet talk. I am here to tell you the heart of the problem. Okay, the heart of the problem is the zoning. Let's bring the zoning. That's the solution. That's the main solution. We're gonna work with the county, with the judge. No, it's time for the zoning. Thank you.
So the problem is most of this is actually regulated at the state level, and they've preempted the city from doing much of anything in terms of controlling these types of facilities. But I think what the city needs to have is an action plan for when we have an emergency. And
what I've seen in these situations is the city does not seem to be prepared for it. Number one, we need to catalog all of these things and know where the potential risk threat are, and then we need to have things written down, a protocol written down as to how we're going to respond to it. And I think we saw in Harvey, we're not even prepared to do that in a flood event. Because we had people stranded for days there. We had fire crews that didn't have whitewater training trying to maneuver boats in dangerous situations, and a couple drowned down in Meyerland because of the lack of training and the proper equipment. So this is about preparation, and I wish I could tell you that we're going to go out and regulate these things and do something, but the truth of the matter is, for the most part, that's been preempted by the state, and the regulations at the state level, not at the city level.
But I will tell you, we are pushing back on the state. It is regulated by the TCEQ, Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, but the city is pushing back. We have already placed monitors throughout the entire city of Houston, and we are putting in additional monitors to make sure that we measure the air and water quality level of our water system. That's critically important. Steve Williams, who's the director of the City of Houston Public Health Department, has taken direct leadership in looking at this area as well as other areas. And then we are asking the legislature to impose what we call more right-to-know laws, because we need to know what chemicals are being utilized in these particular plants. So you need to have the right-to-know laws. And then we're asking these companies to work and train our first responders so that our first responders know the chemicals that are in these plants. So when there's a spillage or when there's an explosion, they're not having to ask questions as what's there, but they will have trained with these companies in order to minimize the risk. So there are a number of things that we are needing to do, because in the city of Houston and in the surrounding area, there are petrochemical plants all over. And we're working in collaboration with the county, whether it's with Harris County or Fort Bend. Because when there is a spillage or an explosion, the impact just doesn't stay in one geographical area. It's transient, and we need to be prepared to address it.
So I do agree that, we need to push back on state institutions. I get sick of politicians saying, well, the state has preempted this, or the state won't let us do that. I mean, aren't the people of Houston ready for a mayor that's actually going to fight for them and stand up for them and represent them on the state level and the national level? I mean, I'm personally sick of just saying, well, the feds, they got control of this. There has to be an effort, I think, to push back instead of just kind of passing the baton down to the next administration who's going to deal with the same problem. So pushing back against the TCEQ, I think, is a good idea. Additionally, I mentioned earlier my Hemp Houston plan. A big part of this is to incentivize oil and gas companies, the petrochemical companies. Many people benefit from oil and gas around Houston, and they don't want to hear the fact that we're dealing with, and this city is built on an unsustainable fuel, and that all the practices that surround it are hurting the environment. In that line of thinking, I really think it's a smack in the face to anybody who cares about the environment and to the waterways and to Houstonians that we continue to have City of Houston events with Shell and Chevron as the sponsors for them, when these are the companies that have been involved with environmental disasters around the world, and yet we continue to partner with them. We talk about a climate action plan and we're this green city and green mayor, but then you partner with the companies who are harming people around the country, around the world. And so I want to create, as part of the Hemp Houston plan, we start incentivizing oil and gas companies to invest. It's an up-and-coming industry. Hemp can be used for fuel. It can be used for shirts. It can be used for fiber. We can create an entire new industry around that and start incentivizing these companies to put even 5% of their funds, their research funds, into a pot for that. Thank you.
Could you restate the question for me, please?
So the question is, when incidents like the one on December 15th, the gas well blowout near Texas Parkway, when incidents like that happen, what will your administration do to ensure residents are properly notified and kept up to date by TCEQ? And then more specifically, what will be your plans to protect the air and water quality in the city?
Sure. In terms of when you have a breach, I think first and foremost, we have to make these chemical companies, these oil and gas companies, accountable. So one of the best ways that we do that is by implementing a penalty fee, okay? And that penalty fee escalates the number of days per day based on the impact, okay? So that's number one. Number two, we need to create zoning. And I can't say that loud enough, okay? There are so many problems in Houston that can be solved with zoning. Do you wonder why every other municipality across this country have zoning? It's to maintain control and to create flow. Okay, so let's adopt the best practices across this country as it relates to zoning, and let's put those into place here in Houston. Now, I was in the Navy, and I had an experience where we went out to sea for 31 days. And I don't know if you've ever been out to sea for 30 consecutive days, and you see nothing but water. But one of the things that you have to prepare for is a fire or some type of breach. And the way that you control a breach is by creating containment. So around these plants, we need to create a containment. And I would even go further to say a control dome containment in terms of creating the zoning for those areas. So those would be some of the best practices that I would look to implement. There's more, but my time's out. Thank you.
Let me recognize my colleague, Councilmember Martha Castex Tatum, and I think former Councilmember Burt Keller is here as well. Don't know if he's still here. Let me just say, Mayor, I think it's important that you realize I am sitting on this dais, so when you say things, facts matters. You got to tell the truth.
That's right.
We have one monitor. We're purchasing a second one. The county has two monitors. The mayor just said there are monitors all around the city. We do not have monitors all around the city.
Wow.
And what I'm saying is what we need to look at is to make certain that we work with all of the power plant companies that have these chemical plants in our areas and have them to purchase monitors for the neighborhood as an agreement, if that's the case. But let me tell you what I've done in my district. We've had sand, hold my time. I didn't know what was going on there. You know, people walk up, shoot you these days. You got to look. Hold on, Steve. I didn't know what was going on there.
I apologize.
My wife's an AKA. I didn't want her to be an AKA with her. Anyway, so what you have are these sand pits. I kind of lost my thought anyway, but
got your idea.
Words
matter.
Okay, what we've done in my district, we've gotten with our state legislator and state senator during that time to make certain that we fight this from a permitting perspective. And Steve, that's what has to happen. I'm just the real deal, man. Nobody owns Janor and I. I call a spade a spade. If that's your role as a state legislator, that's your job. Don't push it on the city. You hold up permits in the legislature before it comes to us. It's my job to work with them. And you have great legislators. Ron Reynolds is excellent. You have Boris Miles, excellent job. But we cannot afford to allow these chemical companies to get permits and then bring them to us, the city, and expect us to stop it. And it happens all the time. No community deserves that, man. And I'm telling you, so it's our job and my job to you as the mayor to make certain the delegation is very clear, our position. Now, I'm going to go back on one other thing. No, he took up 10 seconds. Can I get it? Oh, Steve.
That wasn't on purpose, I promise. I'm late to my next appointment.
All right.
Listen, I want to tell you something that many of you know, maybe you don't know. The air quality standards were developed by the oil and gas industry. All right? The oil and gas standards, or the air quality standards were developed by the industry. How do I know this? Because I've been suing oil and gas companies for 25 years. I've sued BP, Valero, Chevron, hundreds of thousands of times for people that have been exposed during fires and explosions and chemical releases. So when somebody tells me about, well, we have, even if the mayor was right, which he's not, that we have monitors and we're going to buy mobile monitors, let me tell you something. The city of Richmond, California has more monitors around their refinery than any refinery in the entire country. They had a huge release. 14,000 people went to 3 different hospitals because they were overcome by fumes. And you know what the monitor said? The monitor said the air was clean. The monitor said that the air was within standard, the federal government standard. So don't start talking to me about monitors until you talk to me about monitors that actually protect people. Because 14,000 people, the people down in Texas City, you may remember that I represented 45,000 people that were exposed by BP in a 42-day release. The TCEQ has no interest and no teeth to regulate air quality. The way you regulate air quality is you get aggressive about it. The city does it, and the city recognizes that the air quality standards don't really protect people. There is nobody on this stage that knows more about that particular issue than do, and I will not be whitewashed by industry.
Can I make one more point? Another solution to this.
Mr. Taylor, you're on 3.
IoT sensors?
No, not at this time. It's my turn. My next question, and we'll be starting with Mayor Turner. My next question is.
Yes, ma'am.
In the current administration, it was reported that the mayor spent $400 million without the council members' approval because each of the contracts was under $50,000. That's roughly 8,000 contracts. The question, what are your thoughts about this policy? And if elected, would you, or re-elected, would you keep this policy in place? Why or why not?
Let me take issue with your question. When you say reported, it came from people who are running for mayor.
No, it didn't.
Yep.
No, it was in the newspaper.
Chris Brown is the one that said it.
If you all want to speak, I'll listen. But otherwise, you're going to respect me like I respect you. And I'm doing my best to. I'm going to respect everybody on this dais.
We're going to ask everyone to speak.
That's okay.
In their turn.
I can deal with them myself. No problem. But let me just say this. It is not true. Every single dime has been accounted for. In order you can have contracts being let under $50,000 from the city of Houston, which is consistent to state law. But every single dime has been identified. So I take issue with the import of your question. Okay? I take issue with that.
Okay. The question didn't ask if the money was accounted for. It only asked about the policy in place. The question is, what are your thoughts about the policy, and if elected or re-elected, would you keep the policy in place? Why or why not?
And what I'm indicating to you is that there is no mismanagement and no misuse of any policy. Your question implies that there is something that is afoul. And what I'm indicating to you, that is not the case. That is not the case is what I'm saying to you. So I take issue with the question.
Thank you. Mr. King?
Okay, so this was reported by the controller, Chris Brown. He said it was $390 some odd million. It appears to me that probably 2/3 of that was approved were small items like jury fees. There's about $100 million to $150 million though that are contracts were under $50,000 that were approved by the administration that were not approved by council. Now, I don't have a problem with that rule being in place because I don't think you could put every small contract on the agenda. However, we should know about them. They should be up on a website someplace. You ought to be able to go look at them. I filed an open records request and asked for a copy of every contract that was under $50,000 for the term of this administration. I got back a letter from the city that said that we'll be happy to give you those, but it's going to cost $2.8 million to copy those contracts. And you send us over your check for $2.8 million, and we'll be happy to provide you copies of those contracts. That is ridiculous. These contracts should have been up online already. Residents should not have to pay millions of dollars to see the contracts that their tax money is going to pay.
Let's talk about facts. Facts, you know. Okay. So the former secretary of the mayor, Mr. Darian Ward, was indicted because he was blocking the public information about who is getting the contract. I said in the beginning. I say it all over when I've been to. I did my own audit to the budget. I'm a risk management master degree, strategist, whatever. But the problem is, if you go to the budget, any financial person here, go. There is no details. Who is getting the contract? They're just writing the invoices, sending them, and they send the payment. And his owner, the mayor, let me tell him his owner because he's the CEO of the city of Houston, not a public servant. He been blocking the information. And who paid the prices? His former secretary. He was indicted. This is facts. I don't like to talk imaginary. I just talk about facts. Go check the budget. There is no details on who is getting the contract, how much they got the contract. And I said in the beginning, There is a problem in I-10 East. It's same place is getting flooded, and they are sending the same invoices. They are sending the same invoices, and we are paying. City of Houston is a rich city. We are full of over $500 million that even giving by inflated the budget, exaggerated cost it. $2.7 million supposed to be ex-attorney who gave him the fees and Harvey assistant. From $2.7 million, he gave him $6.7 million. So $4 million. What is this? I want that $4 million refund, and I want to give it to the single mothers to have houses. They are living in hotels. Single mothers with kids. That's why I'm today here. Thank you.
Thank you.
As your next mayor,
question.
it's me. Yeah. As your next mayor, I will change that policy. For long, the city, we have a strong form of mayor government. And when you're spending that kind of money, the city needs to be very transparent to the public. Citizens, taxpayers need to know where every dime is going. And that's just too much to handle. And for years, not only has it been spent in those huge chunks, as an employee, I sit back and watched how they hide, how they charge for public information, how they block it, how they use the Attorney General's office to lengthen that time. And when it's an election year, they'll even go further to block the information because they don't want any bad news to come out. So as your next mayor, yes, I would change that policy. Why? Because it's something that the public wants to be changed. It's something that I want to be changed. And I believe that local government should be total transparent from here on out. We need change at City Hall. Thank you.
So the policy we're talking about allows the mayor to approve contracts that are less than $50,000, and I agree because it took me a long time because he fought. This is the least transparent city government that I've seen since I've been living in the city of Houston. They fight every Freedom of Information Act request. They'll take you to court. They'll take you to Supreme Court if you're willing to spend the money. And what we found is there are, in fact, a lot of these contracts, and here's the big problem. The big problem is it's called contract splitting. Do you know what I mean? In other words, they split the contract up into increments such that the city council doesn't have oversight of them and then approve them, when in fact the whole contract should be a lot more than $50,000. If we have a city where $400 million worth of contracts can be approved without proper oversight, that somebody can be hired based on 3 emails during a hiring freeze, based on 3 emails, and then when confronted, the mayor says, I don't know that person, and then when shown that he knows this person, says, well, I have the same relationship with that person as all 23,000 other employees, except this particular employee exchanges emails late at night with the mayor. We have a transparency problem in the city of Houston. We need to, if you want good government, shine a bright light on it. If you want good government, shine a bright light. We should know where every penny is spent, who's getting the contracts, and why they're getting them. And that's how it's going to be when I'm your mayor. Thank you.
Let me say, you give credit where credit is due. When it came to our homeless situation in my district, on Alameda and 59, encampment became a major issue. I give the mayor a lot of credit for bringing in the ordinance that deals with the 3x3 box. When it comes to panhandling, human trafficking, I give him a lot of credit for that. But I'm not going to give him credit or let him take credit for stuff that's not factual. But I do want to say with regards to this $400 or $500 million that came across, that did not come across council desk, the Houston Chronicle informed me. I don't know if Councilmember Tatum knew. I think Councilman Green was around during that time. We didn't know this was going on. I'm not blaming the mayor, but what I am going to do is make certain as your mayor that the department heads won't have that kind of control, because this is what happens. The deputy directors and the directors make those decisions. So Jane Doe or John Doe can have a small business, and that director, not the council member, not the mayor, would have influence over their success of getting work, keeping it under the threshold of what we approve, 30,000 here, 30 here, and you multiply that times 5 or 6 transactions, that can help their business. So you're giving the influence and the power to a deputy director. So we will bundle up contracts, the deputy director and the director. First of all, everyone will resign. and reapply for their job. Because we're going to come in with a zero-based budget approach to make certain that we clean from the bottom up, to make certain it's a fair and precise and clean process. I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but we're going to start over, hit start, and make certain that everybody feel that they're getting a fair shot at the city under my administration.
Thank you.
Can I use a rebuttal? Go ahead.
All right, so in terms of the question, I would in fact leave the policy in place in terms of the 50,000 and less. However, I would make it more transparent and more accountable so that everyone can see firsthand where every dollar and every cent goes. It's just the proper thing to do. But let's just take a little deeper dive into this conversation, because I want each of you to be aware of something that is taking place here in Houston. And I look at it as organized crime. And what it is Anise Parker, she was a controller before she became mayor. And one of the things that she did when she became mayor, she took the 4 primary funds and collapsed them into one centralized fund. Now, I don't know how many people in here are accountants or professionals in that arena, but when you do an objective or a move like that, that is for commingling of funds. So when she collapsed those 4 primary funds into one, that allowed them to do what they're doing right now, plain and simple. Now, Mayor Turner, when he became mayor, he had an opportunity to straighten that up, clean it up, and do what was right. But he didn't do that. He continued the same process, in the same methods, in the same procedures. And now we're having this conversation about $390 million that's unaccountable.
Thank you.
Period. Thank you.
Mr. Rose.
Yeah, thank you for that insightful information, Mr. Taylor.
Anytime, Derek.
People do appreciate transparency, and when we're talking about city budgets, I can understand a politician, elected official saying, look, it's going to take too much time to tell you, where all the budgets are going, how many contracts we're signing. But, think about it. This is your money. It seems like politicians always say, well, it's too hard, it's too difficult, it's going to take too long. Let us just filter down information, right? And also the other thing, as far as transparency, we're living in a digital age where it is so easy to put this information online. It takes moments to get the information from the budget, the contracts, and immediately have a place that Houstonians who want to keep up with this can go and check and keep up with. And that includes budgets under $50,000. Because as others have pointed out, this is just going to allow a situation that gives government officials a creative way to hide money and to shuffle it around so that you don't see the bigger picture. And that's what they always do. And also to Mr. Taylor's point, at the end of the day, I think when we really look at this race and we look at how the city's being ran and you look at how local media is controlling this race as well and giving you a perception there's only 4 candidates running and you have corrupted officials. At the end of the day, we have to recognize that the local government all the way from the bottom to the top and the media from the bottom to the top is run by organized crime.
That's correct.
And it's time to change it.
It's just a fact.
It's time to change that.
Game over.
Okay. All right, any rebuttals?
Well, I had just one, the following Councilmember Boykins' answer when he said that he was going to make all of the directors and deputies quit and then rehire. Well, the city is top heavy, and it's been top heavy for a long time. There are at least 500 executive level positions there that need to be looked at, and not all of them need to be rehired. That's a savings of several million right there. You have some supervisors and managers that can handle those jobs. And so I would say to you, Mr. Boykins, I would take it to another level. I would drain some of those positions and not refill all those positions so that we can save a lot of money, because we have too many chiefs down there.
Okay, thank you. We have time for one last question. So I'm going to ask.
I have another rebuttal.
You're going to rebut on this
Yeah,
one?
I want to do it.
Oh, okay, all right.
Okay, thank you guys. Over $1.5 billion, the mayor has a fund and he's not helping the people of Harvey. Even the governor, he sent a letter to him, tell him why you are not releasing the money to the people who got hit by Harvey. Why, sir? Why? People, I saw a lot of pain. People sleeping in the street the time you're going back to your comfortable bed. 7 days with my kids, we lost power. I even write a book with my wife. I won't be here today if it was for Harvey, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have time for one last question.
Will we get a closing statement?
If,
Is there going to be a closing statement, or is this the
yeah,
last?
there will be a closing after this. I'm trying to squeeze in one more question before the closing. If I could ask to try to exercise some brevity in your answers so that we can get through them and get everybody out of here on time. It's a very simple question. What is your position on the voter-imposed revenue cap, and would you support going back to the voters to remove the revenue cap if you were elected mayor? We'll start with Mr. King.
We do not have a revenue cap. We have a property tax cap. And that distinction is important because only about 26% of the city's revenues are property taxes. The other 74% come from other sources, and there is no limitation on those. By the way, what the cap says is that the city cannot raise property taxes by more than the sum of inflation and property and population growth, which has worked out to be around 3 or 4%, without coming back and asking for your permission. Any year that they want to exceed that limitation, all they have to do is come ask your permission. Absolutely, this should never be removed, because if it is, on any Wednesday down there, they can raise your property taxes, except that the state has now backed it up with its own cap. So absolutely, this should never be taken away.
Okay, thank you. 73% of the revenue of the city of Houston is taxes. That's bad. But the problem is, cap or no cap, the problem is we are inflated the budget by exaggerated cost. $400 million we are missing in the budget is going to the contractor. They are overcharging. That's the problem. There is no cap or no cap. I would love to have a flat rate taxes, especially on senior citizens, my parents or my wife. Flat rate for the senior citizen. No 3% for, you can do whatever you want. But the major problem is it's inflated budget. We have the money. We don't supposed to have a problem with the firefighters or the police. We have the money, guys. I did my personal audit. And I say it. I won't come out if I didn't get hurt by Harvey. I'll be sitting in the shadows giving advice to many elected officials, but I make decision. And I make a vote to my wife and my 4 kids that I'm going to work for you people. If you vote for me, I'm in your side. The problem, City of Houston has the money. It's rich. There is money missing in the Port of Houston too. Millions of dollars are missing in Port of Houston. I did the audit. Let's do the audit of Port of Houston. Millions, over $300 million is missing in Port of Houston. Nobody's talking about it. I'm the only one talking about it. Thank you.
All right. And I'm going to stress the brevity part now. If you can just do this within 30, 45 seconds for us, please.
Yeah, I'm gonna say yes. I would support that, because what it'll do is prevent the mayor having that power from threatening the public to raise the taxes at any given point. Because I remember last year there was an incident where the mayor had threatened to raise the taxes because he couldn't get something passed, and I think they talked about raising it quite high before that referendum was placed on the ballot. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the city does. That cap has been in question for a long, long time. I think it should go back to the public to be considered on whether or not it should be raised or not.
Is the question, do you support raising the revenue cap or the property tax cap? No, I do not. Not until we stop wasting all the money we waste at City Hall. We're never going to sell that to anybody until we stop wasting the money that's been wasted at City Hall.
Let me tell you, when you sit at the council table and look at the budget, it's very clear. Washington, D.C., Austin, Texas, Dallas, San Antonio, none of them have a revenue cap. How are you going to budget and operate and maintain city services with no money? This revenue cap is ridiculous. It makes no sense. No other city has it, and we shouldn't have a revenue cap. We need to make certain our parks are intact, have revenue for that. We need to make certain that the firefighters and the police officers have the revenue to do their job. We need to make certain streets and inlets that I'm proposing are in place so we don't have an issue with revenue. You can change out the leadership, But the revenue cap is crazy. It's a political move. Bill White was running for governor, trying to court the Republican vote, and brought in this darn revenue cap. It's hurting our city. And we cannot have that. And I'm not, I think Mayor Turner is going a totally different direction in terms of running the city. But I think I do agree with him on the proposed revenue cap because it's hurting us, you guys. You can talk about it all you want, how you mismanaging money. This revenue cap is strangling this city of Houston.
Thank you, Mr. Borkins.
Yeah.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes. In terms of the rev cap, we would not increase that. But what I want to let each one of you know in the All Campaign Stronger Together, we're going to create $2 billion in new revenue. And we're going to do that through 5 primary ways. Number one, we're going to create a 5G network to help solve the problem for 25% of students who do not have internet access at home and cannot continue their learning outside of the 4 walls of the school. Number 2, we're going to create zoning, and that's going to create new revenue from permitting. Number 3, we're going to create smart opportunity zones, and that's going to bring new tax revenue based on the inducements and the incentives that's associated with that. And then number 4, we're going to create tax incentives for any entertainment company that brings any movie or records any song here in Houston, and we will give them back 30 cents on every dollar that they invest and make here in Houston.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you. Okay.
I'm going to do my best to respect your call for brevity. And just if I can, we've been doing these forums for a couple of months, and I'm on the stage with a bunch of adults who have problems listening to basic instructions, and when people say time's up, they keep going. I'm just saying, those are the people running for to be mayor for you. So Bill King is right that the language is mixed up. They call it a revenue cap, it's a property tax cap. And of course, a government official, a politician would talk about your property taxes, money they're getting from you as their revenue because they want their hands in your pocket. And we shouldn't trust them. I don't think we should trust them and remove this and give them the ability to raise more money and raise fees on us if they can't be trusted already. The last question was about lack of transparency. So why give them the opportunity to take more money out of your pockets?
We've been under a revenue cap since 2004. In 2006, Mayor White added $90 million, asked the voters to approve $90 million on top of the revenue cap. And it is a revenue cap. It's population plus inflation of 4.5%, whichever is the highest. So it is a revenue cap. And I will tell you, by virtue of the revenue cap, since I've been mayor, we have had to lower the tax rate 3 times. We just lowered it in September again. People are asking for a lot of services. But bear in mind, when you're under the cap, you can only spend what you have. And now the state, your state government, has imposed additional revenue cap on top of every city and on top of every county. So even if you were to remove it, the state now has captors because they're wanting to hurt your cities.
Thank you. And no rebuttals. All right.
Are there any left?
Not for us. A few of y'all have saved some.
I have one left.
Yeah, you do have one.
I figured I did. I just want to say, and Dwight and I rarely disagree. Certainly, we're always friendly if we do. But I want to say this. When we talk about pain, like the streets, policing and stuff, let's not forget the pain of the people who own homes. That's their only investment, and they can barely pay their taxes now and insurance now. So let's not forget that when you raise the property taxes, that there's a direct impact and pain to people that actually have to pay them. So you should first insist that we're spending your money wisely before you ever talk about more revenue.
Thank you. Okay, the time is drawing near, and I know that all of our good people here in Fort Bend County need to get on back home. Carl, if you don't mind, I'm just going to give them 30 seconds to wrap things up and kind of put all your best messages into one 30-second block and let us hear what you have. We're going to start with Hujami and then work this way. And then when you see the stop sign, can we cut off mics? Can y'all cut off mics?
Please.
When you see the stop sign and you keep talking, we're going to cut the mics off.
30 seconds. Okay.
30 seconds.
Thank you, guys.
And go.
Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody who are with us today. Houstonians are tired of the political division, of polarizing issues, of the corruption and abuse of power at the City Hall. I will change all that if you vote for me. I'm number 2 in the ballot, hujamiformayor.com. I promise you, I will be on your side. I will bring peace to the city of Houston. I will bring prosperity to share the money with everybody. The contract must be, you can't give the money to just your people, sir. No. You need to spread, you need to give prosperity to people. You know, Houston is a rich city. Thank you.
I'm bringing some handcuffs for you next time.
I want to thank you for one of the best forums I've ever been to, one of the most organized forums I've been to out of them all. My name is Kendall Baker, number 5 on the ballot, son of a pastor, grew up in Houston's north side, worked for the city for 29 years. The Lord told me to run for this race. Why? Because Houston is in trouble, both spiritually and in the physical. I'm running to make a change. You have a pastor here with 30 years of experience, ready to hit the ground running day one. If you elect me, I promise you, I'll be the best man.
I want to thank you all for coming here with an open mind and listening to each of us give our spiel. I want to say this, you know, I spent 4 years active duty in the United States Marine as an infantry officer. I left as a captain, served with people all over the country. Something I was very proud to do, to serve our country. When the United States is in trouble, they send in the Marines. I think Houston, Texas is in trouble. And I'm asking you to send in this Marine, and I'll clean this thing up. I appreciate you.
Let me thank Pastor Jones and the Seventh-day Adventist family for being here and letting us borrow your beautiful sanctuary. Thank you all for coming out. I'm asking for your vote. I think the city is looking for real leadership. I've been on council for 6 years, and all you have to do is go and look at what I've done in my district. We address food deserts. We address the Second Chance program. We've addressed seniors programs. We put TERSs in my district. We will continue to work to service neighborhoods. When Mayor Lee Brown came on board with me, one of the things he gave me credit about was that, Dwight, you're about the neighborhoods. And as your mayor, that's what our focus will be. CDBG dollars will be allocated.
Okay. All right, first of all, I just want to say thank you for this awesome forum and this awesome location. And I hope everyone has heard something that you can connect to tonight. I'm going to ask for your vote here. I am Johnny Taylor with the All Campaign Stronger Together. And I am asking you to join me in this movement and help me to lead you into the future. I'm running on innovation. I have a solution for our problems. And more importantly, I have a vision that can get all of us to a brighter future together through the All Campaign Stronger Together. Thank you.
Can I use my 2 rebuttals to rebut to myself? Or do those just get wasted? Oh, okay, all right. All right, guys, thank you so much for being out here. Thank you to everybody who organized this. My name is Derek Bros, derekbros.com to find out the 9 platforms that I'm focused on. We didn't get much into that tonight, but I'm happy to answer the questions that concern you. And again, I want to remind you that Houston is at a pivotal point, at a crucial point, and I think it is a spiritual battle as well. This election is not just about the city of Houston. This is not just another local election. We are the 4th largest city in the country, and what happens here is going to affect the rest of the nation and the rest of the world. So we need to start thinking outside of political hacks and thinking about people who come from the community, and I am your advocate. Thank you.
As mayor, we'll face pension debt, budget debt, tax day flood, Harvey, tropical storm, Imelda. City is still standing. And let me just say to you this. You can't do it all in 4 years, and it's always easy to be a backseat driver trying to tell everybody else how to drive. But on Harvey, I was out there. On Imelda, I was out there. Now look around and see if you've seen anybody else.
Well, actually, a lot of us were out there, Sylvester, but I ran 4 years ago for mayor because I didn't think the city was working very well. 4 years later, I don't see that much has improved. Our streets are still a mess. We're flooding more houses than ever, and our finances are much, much, much worse than they were 4 years ago. The last fiscal year, we ran a $435 million operating deficit in the general fund. It is the largest deficit in the city's history. If you will send me to City Hall, I will give you a City Hall that works again and one that you can be proud of.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's give these candidates a round of applause. Before you leave, before we leave, we want the candidates to stand so we can take a picture. But I want to recognize all of the elected officials who are here. I'm so glad to see our Councilmember Martha Cashstack Tatum in the house. We're also glad to see our State Representative Ron Reynolds in the house. We're happy to see our Constable Darrell Smith in the house. Are there any other elected officials that I may have omitted? Who? Addie Hagler of the Hellinger of Fort Bend ISD. Anyone else? Okay, we're going to ask everybody, y'all just tighten up a little bit, so we're going to take one big group shot. I want to thank all of our community partners. If those partners would come and get on my side, either side, right quick. All of the community partners, would you come up? Quickly, all the community partners get on one side or the other. The moderators, you all can come up as well. We want to thank Fort Bend, Houston, and the community partners for putting on a great debate. Let's give Fort Bend, Houston, and all the community partners a great hand. We want to thank Pastor Gordon S. Jones for allowing us to use his facility. This mayoral forum, it was streamed live by the church here. So we're going to take one big picture. We want to thank all of the candidates. We want to thank all, hey, Mayor Turner. Mayor Turner, I want to shake your hand. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for coming. The moderators did a great job. We want to thank Dr. Brown and Steve Brown for doing a great job. Thank you.
Wasn't you supposed to recognize the other people who are running for councilman as well? No. Just recognition, that's what we said in the deal.
Okay.
I mean, you know.
We also like to recognize all those other city councilmen who are running and who attended. All those other council individuals who showed up, we want to recognize them, and we thank you all for coming. Thank you very much. We want to thank all the helpers, all those who volunteered to help us put on this mayoral reform as well. Thank you very much. Drive home safely.
Okay, kill us, Mike.
Thank you.